It is currently January 3rd, and I thought I'd try my hand at my first video because I've had a lot of questions on how to use the Instant Pot, and people are intimidated about using it for the first time, and you know that I'm like completely obsessed with mine. So, I hadn't planned on doing anything today. My goal was to keep all of us in our pajamas today and not move our butts from the couch because we've not had a day like that in a long time, and I'm tired. I'm still recovering from the chaos of Christmas, and then Evie having the croup, and then having a birthday party last weekend. I haven't put any Christmas up in my house yet, and anybody that knows me knows that that happens on January 1st every year. But not this year. No, everything's still up. It might stay up a while. Like I said, I'm tired. But it's cold, and it's rainy today, and it's the perfect day for beef stew. So my family's got to eat. Instant Pot's easy. I enjoy cooking with it. It doesn't feel like a chore to me. So I thought I would share that with you all. This is my first opportunity to show anybody how to use the Instant Pot. Or if you don't have an Instant Pot, how to use an electric pressure cooker. Because while I do have 2 Instant Pots, I am today going to be cooking with my pressure canner, which also works as a pressure cooker. We call it the Death Star because it's like, I don't remember, it's like 8 or 10 quarts. It's ginormous. But when I make beef stew, I like to make a ginormous thing of it because I freeze part of it for days when Evie and I are by ourselves and I need something quick and easy and filling. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the pressure cooker, and I hope you all find this helpful. Okay, so beef stew is real simple. I do not have a recipe. I just make it like I do on the stove. And I do what's called the spoon test. I put more of what I like and less of what I don't like, and I just kind of put it all together till it looks good. Which is why I like using the 8-quart pot also, because I can keep adding crap and not have limitations that a 6-quart is going to cause me. But I went ahead and got one of my Instant Pots out. This is the one I think most of you have. It's got the regular display. I also have an Ultra, which has a digital display and shows you where you're at in the cooking process, which is so nice because then you don't ever have to wonder, is it coming to pressure? Am I almost cooking? Am I almost there? Because it tells you where in the pressure building you're at on the Ultra. But this one does not, and that's okay. This is what most people have, and this works great. For beef stew, basic ingredients is veggies, broth. The only herb I always use 1 bay leaf, and stew meat. When I make a giant pot, I like 2 pounds of stew meat. I have a little more than that here because I just got what they had at the grocery store last night. But for your regular normal size Instant Pot, you probably want to scale this down with about 1 pound of stew meat, which is perfectly fine for a family of 4. I use either ketchup, which my mom always used in beef stew to sweeten it up, or I'll use tomato paste, or I'll use sauce. Whichever one you have, one of these will work great. You can combine them if you want. You can put a little of each. It doesn't really matter. This is how you like your beef stew. I like lots of veggies, but the reason why I'm fat is I happen to love potatoes. So I put a butt ton of potatoes in because that's what I like. And then I add a few extra fresh carrots because my toddler likes that. So this is where we're at. The first thing I do is I brown the meat because brown means flavor. And you can cook stuff in the Instant Pot without browning your meat first. Yes, that is true. It will still be tender, but it will be so much more delicious if you just take the 2 extra minutes and saute it first. And the wonderful thing about the Instant Pot is you have this function here, which you don't use the lid for, is the saute function. So you would just press that. I don't have this plugged up, obviously, because I'm using the Death Star, as we call it. You just use the saute function. You press saute, and then you press, it'll start going. You can set it if you want it more heat or less heat. It's just like the oven, okay? It's just like the stovetop, okay? High, medium, low. You set it the way you want it. Don't just put your stuff right in, okay? You got to let it heat up for just a minute. You just like your stovetop, okay? Same principle. This is just a hot plate. Consider that. The sides of the pan don't even get hot up here when you saute, barely, because, like I said, it's like a hot plate. All your heat's right here. And don't be alarmed by that if you get that film. That will come off with vinegar if you want to take the time. It doesn't affect the flavor of anything. It's just, you know, oxidization or whatever you call it. It's perfectly clean. Anyway, so my Death Star happens to also have a saute function. We call it the brown function. And a lot of pressure cookers have them. So that's what I'm going to do first, is I'm going to take this meat. I'm going to throw a little flour on it, probably right here on the pack, because that's easy, and I like easy, and I don't want to have to, you know, clean something else. So I'll throw a little flour on, a little pepper, a little salt, toss it around on the pack right here, and then I'm just going to dump it in with about probably less than a tablespoon of oil. You know, just a couple little drizzles of oil. I'm going to let this get hot. I'm going to brown this up, and you can do it in small batches if you want and then take it out. I don't really care about it, you know, sticking, because I'm going to deglaze the pot with my broth anyway. So I just do what's easy. So here's my fancy and exact way that I flour and salt and pepper my meat. Nothing to it. I just don't like to clean up more than I have to. So I just do it right there. And then I throw it in my pot. Let it start sizzling up. You know, you don't have to be exact. You don't want to super overcrowd it, because then your stuff won't brown. But I'm not worried about this cooking, because it's obviously going to cook when I put it under pressure. I just want to get some flavor. That's all. I just want some flavor. And listen, I'm all about cheap too. Stew meat is usually pretty cheap this time of year, but if it's too expensive, just buy a chuck roast and cut it up yourself. Like, it's legit the same stuff. And it tastes the same. And sometimes those little sneaky people at the meat department will make it like twice the price. Stew meat is so expensive sometimes, and there's just no rhyme or reason for it. Okay, right now I'm kind of overcrowding it, but I'll pinch it down here in a second. All I'm doing right now is browning. Look how easy my cleanup is. Oh my gosh. Couple Clorox wipes, and I am done. I do need to wash my meat. This is my stew meat. I'm just flipping it around, getting it all browned. Again, if you have a lot of it, like I do, you can do it in batches if you want. I'm too lazy for that because it's stew. I thought stew would be a good start out for the Instant Pot, because it is so simple, and it does lend itself really well to the pressure cooker. Okay? But do not be intimidated by this at all. My absolute favorite thing that I like to make in here, for me personally, are chicken wings. And then I broil them just for a few minutes afterwards in the oven to crisp them up. But not everything in a pressure cooker has to be soupy or stewy. You know, it doesn't have to all just fall apart to the point that you can't eat it unless it's mush. That's not, we're not slow cooking everything to death like a slow cooker does, you know? The pressure cooker is so versatile. You have a trivet that came with it. You can cook on top of it. That's what I do my wings in. You can do what they call PIP cooking, which is pot and pot cooking. And you gotta be careful with what you use. If you want stainless steel or you want something with tempered glass. The new Pyrex, by the way, does not work well in that because apparently it shatters, so don't use Pyrex. I have some Anchor Hocking that I've used to do pot and pot cooking. But you can, you know, I mean, you can do a lot of things with this besides just soups and stews. This is just so easy and so versatile and so comforting on a cold, wet day that I thought this might be a good start for most folks. Anyway, I'm going to brown all this up, and then I am going to remove it from the pot so I can deglaze it. So I will have to dirty up a bowl. Oh, by the way, when you're doing this kind of thing and your pot starts moving like that, one hack that I saw online is to use a binder clip on the side. It works great. It works better on the Instant Pot than it does on this one, but it keeps it in place. It doesn't bother me because, like I said, this is not really that hot. It's very, very warm. On the Instant Pot, I think it's even less hot, but this insert for this pressure cooker is slightly different than the Instant Pot, so it gets a little warmer. Anyway, I'm going to brown this up and then take it out and deglaze my pan with the broth. So for the most part, I have browned my meat. If you like it charred brown, like I said, do it in small batches. Be all neat and pretty about it. Good for you. There's no wrong way. While my saute function is still on, I'm going to pour my broth in here, okay? Because I want to get all that crusty bit on the bottom. Before I get a lot of meat, I come in here and I try to... I'll just stick my little... You're not going to, obviously, stainless steel, you're not going to mess anything up. But I like to... This is how I like to deglaze my pan. Number one, it tastes fantastic to get the bits in your soup. And number two, it's helpful when you clean it. Because, you know me, I like to clean. So, I'm just going to throw this around a minute. Get all this business off the bottom. Doesn't really take very long, like I said. Keep the saute function on. You want this to stay warm while you're doing this, okay? I've gotten everything off the bottom. It's all, every bit of it has been deglazed. And that was just one small little can of broth that I use. You don't want too much liquid when you're doing that because it'll splatter everywhere. At this point, you want to cancel your saute function, okay? Which on the Instant Pot is really easy to do. All you do is you press this button because you want to turn it off. Okay, you're turning off the heating element on the bottom while we do what I call the great dump. Because that's basically all we're doing now. It's just dumping ingredients. And I don't have a recipe, but you can watch the method here and you can curtail, you know, you can make this, customize it how you like it. The first thing I do is I put in my broth because you do have to have liquid. In every Instant Pot dish, you need liquid. You need at least a cup of liquid. And liquid does not mean broth or water. Liquid can be diced tomatoes. It can be soups. You know, if you use cream of chicken soup or whatever, that's liquid. But in a soup or a stew like I'm making, obviously I'm using broth. Just plain old beef broth. And I also like to use a can of diced tomatoes because I like tomatoes in my soup. So right now, I have a butt ton of liquid. That's a lot of liquid. All right. I'm going to start dumping my other ingredients at this point because I don't want to have nothing but liquid. I like a stew. I don't like a soupy soup. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dump in my meat. This is really exact. I mean, you can see what an exact science all this is. I'm just going to dump my meat in. That's going to be my reservoir for dirty stuff. And let me dump my mass amount of potatoes in. Yes, I'm having to use a step stool because I have this thing on a raised dais that makes it too tall for me to get to. There's my tomatoes. Now I need my veggies, which probably should have gotten this sorted out before I pressed record. But I've never made a video. I'm learning. There's one thing of veggies. I really don't think that's enough. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I need another thing of veggies. You can use whatever veggies you want. Mixed veggies is just a classic stew recipe. Alright, so as you can tell from in here, I've got a lot of crap. Let me stir it up. Make sure I don't have too much stuff, because with the Instant Pot, the thing you don't want to do is have too much. You don't ever want to go more than, I think what they say is 3/4 or 2/3 of the way full, whatever. I don't know. You need to have it. You don't want to go over about right there on your Instant Pot. Okay, you need to have like about you need about that much room left. Okay, because you have to have room for it to release the pressure when it builds up in here. If you go over that, when it releases the pressure, your liquid and everything is going to spew out of your top. That means all the steam that comes out of your valve at the top is also going to have like potato froth and other crap that I'm pretty sure you don't want on your cabinet or on your floor. All right, so when I say I don't have a recipe, this is what I mean. I kind of look at it and I say, well, you know, I got a lot of beef, I got a lot of potatoes, everything. I do what we call the spoon test, you know. If you like a perfect ratio, then make sure your spoon ratio looks about right. I told you I like more meat and potatoes, so that's what I'm heavy on. All right, so my guts look pretty good. Now let me start adding back some liquid stuff because I have some room to play with here. So I'm going to use my room to play with to make flavor. And I am going to use a little bit of ketchup because Evie loves ketchup. And this is what my mom always did when I was a kid. I'll clean that in a second. I could probably stand to put in another can of diced tomatoes in this. But I think I'm going to go with the tomato sauce this time instead. To add a can of tomato sauce. To just kind of round out my flavor. Alright. You can certainly make a more savory beef stew if you want, with like Worcestershire and garlic, that kind of thing. Mine is more of a sweeter, you know, just kind of rustic beef stew. This is very similar to what my mom always made when I was a kid. And everybody loves it. I've never had someone not love it. So, okay, so just stir all that together. Here's the thing about the pressure cooker, okay? Instant Pot or otherwise. Pressure cooking intensifies flavor. So, I'm always really, really careful. I'm probably too careful because I'm a little paranoid about salt in the pressure cooker. I often undersalt and let people add salt, you know, to their own taste because I'm paranoid. But you certainly don't want to use more than, you know, a teaspoon of salt. This is a half a teaspoon. So I'm going to use, you know, I've got a lot of tomato on there and it's kind of salty, so I'm going to use a little less than a teaspoon. And I'm going to use probably a fourth of a teaspoon of black pepper. And that's all that I'm going to do. That might be too little. I don't know. You can taste it when it's done and see if you need to add something. You certainly can. But you can never, you can never really taste it throughout the cooking process when it's cooking, obviously, because it's under pressure and you can't do that. That's the one downside about soups and stuff in the pressure cooker is you can't taste as you go. But there's so many more pros that that's not even a con to me. All right, so that's all mixed up and good and everything like that. The only last thing I do is I put my bay leaf, you know, on top. Sometimes I might push it in. You know, I just always just do one bay leaf. It adds a little bit of a savoriness to it. Okay, so now that that's done, this is done. This soup is done. I actually have more room. I can add more stuff, but I just don't need to. You know, I've used everything. So the thing you want to do now is you want to make sure, number one, every single time you use your Instant Pot, you want to make sure that there's not any kind of debris, like a random pea that fell out around your lid. But you want to make sure every single time, this is so important, okay, because your pot won't come to pressure otherwise and it's a danger, is you want to make sure that this ring in your Instant Pot is seated properly, okay? And that means you can feel if it's not, okay, because there's a ridge in the middle of it that wire guard goes into. So if that wire's out of that ridge, you'll feel it. It's very, very noticeable. There's not going to be any question about is it right or is it wrong. It's super easy to tell if it's wrong. Okay? The Instant Pot is the exact same way. See that wire guard there? That's how, when it's properly seated, is when that wire guard is in the ring. You want to check this every single time you open the lid after pressure, okay? Even if you have to put the lid back on and add more pressure, you need to check it again because during the cooking process, sometimes this, you know, the pressure and the heat and the steam will cause that to move away a little bit when you open it. So that would not be properly seated. If you closed your lid with it like that right now, then your pot would not come to pressure, okay? And you'd be like 40 minutes later, you're going to be like, what's going on? Nothing, something's not right. Because even with this much volume of liquid, and this is probably the most volume of liquid you're going to have in dishes. This is from a stew or a soup. With this much volume of liquid, it is going to take the longest amount of time to come to pressure. This will take probably about 15 to 25 minutes just to come to pressure before it will start cooking. So you need to factor that into your cook times. Now, stew, it's worth it to me because good stew simmers on the stove all day and you got to keep stirring it. You know the drill. It's like several hours deal. This stew right here, it's going to take about 25 minutes to come to pressure, and then it's going to cook under pressure for 35 minutes. Okay, that's a long time for pressure cooking. 35 minutes is a long time for pressure cooking. So this is going to cook under pressure for 35 minutes, so you're looking at roughly an hour from just that till it's done pressure cooking. When it's done pressure cooking, you're going to want to let it sit for about 10 minutes before you release the pressure, just to give it a good chance to, intensify and meld all those flavors together. The other thing you need to do before you close that lid is you need to look around here. Let's see, look, I got some ketchup. You need to make sure that there's no debris. You need to wipe this off. I'm going to get me a paper towel and I'm going to wipe this off. So you want to wipe this off and make sure that there's no food particles or debris around your sealing area here, okay? And that includes down here too, because you want your pressure cooker to have a good seal. Just like if the ring was unseated, it won't come to pressure if you don't have a good seal. So you don't want anything under here. Okay? So, now that that's done, I've checked my ring. My ring is good. I'm going to close my lid. All right? And then once I close it, I'm going to turn it on, which my little sucker ain't even plugged up. Once I turn it on, I'm going to do... You're going to want to make sure that your valve is sealed, and you're going to want to do the pressure cooking function. And you're going to want to do it for 35 minutes. I'll show you how to do this on the Instant Pot too. It's really easy. It's easier on the Instant Pot in my opinion. And then you'll press start. So I'm pressure cooking 35 minutes, and I press start. Like I said, this is going to take about 25 minutes before it actually starts cooking. On the Instant Pot, it's even easier. All you would do is press manual, and you would go up till you get to 35 minutes. And then once you hit 35 minutes, take your hand away, and it's done. It starts automatically on its own once you've stopped pressing the up and down buttons for the time. Now for your actual lid on this kind of the Instant Pot, before you turn it on, you want to make sure that it's set to sealing. Okay, venting is releasing the pressure, but you can feel it. It comes up and it releases the pressure on the venting settings. So you want to do sealing, manual. Put it up to 35 minutes, step away. It'll start automatically. So now, I just got to clean up my little mess. It's not much. Clean up my counter, and I'll check back when it's done. All right, I have finally reached pressure at 212. It was about 25 minutes. I mean, it might be a little bit less. I had enough time to wash dishes, get my clothes out of the dryer, and change shirts because I had an accident with my toddler. But this thing made a lot of noises. I wish I'd recorded it. I mean, it sounds like a tea kettle at times. It's real loud. It sounds like it's going to blow up. Don't freak out. It's not going to blow up. These things have a lot of safeguards on them. They're not like our grandmother's pressure cookers, okay? They're a lot safer. But they sound horrible. So that's normal. Don't freak out. Anyway, about coming to pressure. Yes, it does take a while when there's more liquid. But if you're doing something like a meat on a trivet, or, you're doing hard-boiled eggs where you just have a cup of water, because, again, you always want a minimum of 1 cup of water in the bottom of your pot of any kind. But if you only have a cup of water, it's going to take like 5 minutes, maybe less, to come to pressure. I mean, it's really, really fast. But the more volume you have in your pot, the longer it's going to take to come to pressure. So always keep in mind when you're planning your recipes, if you have to have something done by a certain time, that more volume, if you fill your pot full, it's going to take upwards of, 25, 30 minutes to come to pressure before it starts cooking. Anyway, we'll check back on this when it's done. So we're done. It has beeped that it's finished. It beeped about 10 minutes ago, or probably a little longer than that, to be honest. I was messing with Evie and wasn't paying attention. But that's the beauty about stew. You can let it what they call naturally release on its own if you wanted to. Natural release means that so much time has gone by that the pressure has naturally come out of the stem a little bit at a time, so that you could open the lid safely. How you know if you can open a lid or not open a lid is that little pin right there. My little pin is up. You can see how it's kind of a little bit over the silver around it. That means if I tried to open the lid right now, it would lock it. It would prevent it. This is a safety feature to keep you from blowing anything up or having anything spew out at you and hurt you. Like I said, this is not your grandmother's pressure cooker. But this pin is still up, even though I've let this naturally release for about 10, 15 minutes. It hadn't been terribly long. So at this point, you'll want to quick release it, is what they call it, quick release. A quick release means that you move the valve to the exhaust setting so that the steam will come up naturally. You can force the steam to go ahead and come on out of the pot, and that pin will drop once the pressure is relieved. This is a lot easier on the Instant Pot because, number one, when it's done cooking, it doesn't say off. When it's done cooking, this little keep warm little button right there, there's a light right there. That light will come on to show you that, number one, it's done cooking. It has beeped. I don't know if you heard it or didn't hear it. It needs to be a louder beep, in my opinion. But anyway, that little light will come on, and then you'll have a countdown right here. And it'll keep going up. It'll tell you how many minutes it's been keeping warm. And so when it gets to 10 minutes, then you're going to want to take your thing and just move it over to the venting, and all the steam will come out, and then that pin will drop. But as you can tell, that pin is below the silver. It is safe to, this is not plugged up or turned on, but obviously the pin is dropped in this. There's no pressure in it. It's safe to open. It will not prevent you from opening it. If that pin is down, like I said, it locks the lid. But anyway, so my thing is done. It's off. I am going to go ahead and quick release the pressure. Okay? Don't be scared. You can do a little bit at times. If you have a lot of liquid and you're worried about liquid coming out, that's just water, by the way. That's just steam. If you're ever worried, though, you're like, holy crap, I think I might have filled this too full. A lot of stuff's coming out. You can stand here and just let a little bit out at a time, like that. You're not going to hurt yourself. Okay, don't be scared. But you can do the same thing on the Instant Pot. You can do the same thing on that one. If you're ever worried that you're going to have, potato or beef stew or whatever spew out of your top, you can kind of test it that way. I have been known to do that a couple times, that I have really packed this sucker full. But anyway, this is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to naturally release it, which is just letting it go through the exhaust. Okay. That's all. And I have moved this up away from my cabinets this time, even though you can't really tell. But if you have undermount cabinets and you're worried about that, they make this little hack. This one is not meant to fit this one. This one is meant to fit my Ultra. But you can get a wider one and fit it around there, and it'll funnel the steam out away. This little PVC elbow joint, whatever. You can get them at Lowe's. It was literally less than $2, and it'll keep the steam off your cabinet. It's a wonderful trick. But this is what it does. It's just releasing. This might take just a couple minutes. It's not super long, but it's also not super, super fast. And you'll often hear the pin drop when it's done. Alright. Let me pause this so you're not watching the steam release. It's riveting, I know. So, by the way, while your thing is cooking, it's the perfect time to whip up a quick pan of cornbread. Because you can't have beef stew without your mama's cornbread. Okay, so the steam is finally finished releasing. It didn't take long, but if you look now, see that pin? It's dropped below that metal ring, so I can now open this. See? Open it, no problem. But even though you can open it, you still want to step back because it is hot when it opens. Doesn't that look good? Doesn't that look good? Let me get a spoon real fast here so I can. Number one, I like to fish out my bay leaf right away as soon as possible so that it doesn't get too heavy in the taste of it, because I'm not a big fan of a lot of bay leaf. But anyway, look at how fantastic that looks. What do you think? One thing I do, I like to take this out of the pot. I like to take my pot out of the liner out of the pot and sit it on my stove because it's easier to scoop out that way and you don't make a mess on your pot when you're serving it too. I'm gonna do that real fast. Taking my pot out of the cooker. I usually go ahead right now and I wash my lid while it's still hot and nothing bakes on it. Every bit of the lid on the Instant Pot, outside, inside, every bit is submersible in water, okay? So I usually take this whole thing off, either on this pressure cooker or my Instant Pot. I take the whole thing off and I wash the lid now while everything is still hot and easy to clean. But look at that. What do you think? Oh my gosh, I wish you could smell this. Like, it smells like it has been cooking all day. Potatoes are perfect done. That is one thing too, is I try to make sure that my big items like potatoes are uniform in cut so they cook evenly. But 35 minutes, 10 minutes, 35 minutes pressure cooking, 10 minutes natural release, perfect. My family is not ready to eat this yet because it's only like, I don't know, 3 o'clock. I made a late lunch, early supper. And our cornbread's not done yet. But I just thought you'd like to see this. And then look at this meat. Like, this meat is just incredible. Look at this. Oh my gosh, it just falls apart. It's so tender. It's always so tender. It's sweet and comforting. This is a tomato-based beef stew, which I love, but like I said, you can make it any way you want, any seasoning you want. You just modify the method. I just hand washed my lid, no big deal. Just soap and some hot water. And then I used a Clorox wipe, or you can use a damp paper towel, however you like to clean. And I just wiped around the outside rim and edges. If your pot is an ultra like mine is, my Instant Pot also has a water reservoir to catch the condensation and the steam. You want to make sure that you do clean that out from time to time because it will mold if you don't. I saw something online about it once. It was disgusting. It's never happened to me, but I clean it regularly. Anyway, that's all I do. You just spot clean the outside. Make sure that the lip and all this business is all clean. You don't need to ever mess with this. Don't be messing with this. Just make sure there's never anything underneath your pot in this, okay? That's it. And this is beef stew. I hope you like it. I hope that this has inspired you to use your Instant Pot. And if you have any questions, I do not mind answering them. I've answered a bunch since Christmas, and I actually enjoy it because I love my Instant Pot. I really, really love it. And enjoy. I just hope you have fun with it because I've had the most fun with mine. Not a bad looking pan of cornbread either, if I might say so myself. We're eating good tonight at the Parham house, and with minimal effort. Is that good?
Good.
Do you like it?
Mm-hmm.